Hi, welcome to another episode of Hot Takes, and you ain't going to believe what I'm about to tell you. I couldn't believe what I'm about to tell you. It is a classic example of MPs' sheer unmitigated greed, and a level of greed beyond comprehension. And I think we've actually got to the point where the only thing you can say is, of these three MPs, are you taking the fucking piss? And I apologise about my language, but you'll see why. And I'm pretty sure you will say the same thing. The three MPs are Charlie Dewhurst, Sir Geoffrey Cox, and Mark Pritchard. They're all millionaires. They all have their homes in their constituency, and they all own a second home paid for by the taxpayer in London, in accordance with the rules. And the taxpayer pays for the upkeep of that second home and the heating of that second home and the etc., etc. on that second home. But these three greedy, and I'm going to say, there's no other word, greedy bastards, right? So they have their second home in London. You think, well, that's the one they'll do when they're down in London doing their MP duties in Westminster. Rather than being up in their constituency doing their MP duties in their constituency. And that generally is what happens. But not for these three. No. These three are renting those houses out. They've leased them out to other people. And so they're getting a nice little kachingy. Geoffrey Cox, in particular, is getting £100,000 a year from taxpayers to help pay to maintain that second home in London, which he is now renting out. And you're thinking, well, if he's getting the money from renting that out, why are we, the taxpayer, paying him £100,000 a year? That's bad, but there's more. Because not only is the taxpayer paying for everything for this second house, and he is claiming all the rent, not giving it back to the country and the taxpayer, but, and get this, because he now doesn't have a house to live in London, he's renting a second property in London, and guess who's paying the rent on that? The taxpayer. So the taxpayer is paying for his second house, which he's renting out, and paying to rent a third property for him to actually live in, because he can't live in his own house because he's rented it out. And the taxpayer's paying for both of these. And apparently it's legal because there's a loophole that says they can do it, so they're doing it. All three of them. They've got their own home, they've got a second home, and then they've got a third home. And we're paying for two of them. And they're getting the rent in their back pocket for renting that middle one out. Greedy bastards. They need to be taken to court. This needs to be shown to be wrong, and everything has to be repaid. What is going on that these three bastards are allowed, I'm going to call it another word there, are allowed to, why is that allowed even as a thing? If you get your second home, you must live in it in London. Should not be allowed to rent it out. And even if you did, then that money that you rent out must go back to the country, must go back to the taxpayer. After all, the taxpayer's paying for the house. It is ineffectively the taxpayer's house. Any rent should be theirs, not the MP's. And then, on top of that, even if you're getting the rent from the house you're renting out, surely you, if you need another rental property, should use the rent money you're taking from the second house to pay the rent on the third house. Oh no, we just put that down to Parliament as well. How many houses have these people got? Are you going to rent that one out, sub-rent the rental property out and go and rent a fourth? Build up a nice little portfolio all on the back of the people. These fuckers are parasites, aren't they? How are they getting away with this? Just to go, Charlie Dewhurst, Geoffrey Cox and Mark Pritchard. Greedy, grasping, slimy wankers. One and all. Give up their houses, charge them back, charge them interest, and then charge them with criminality and throw them in jail, if it's possible. Thanks very much. Angry. Ooh.